Hello and welcome students. Our today's topic is formal and informal communication. Today we are going to take up formal and informal communication. Communication which takes place in the organization can be divided into two categories. The first one is formal communication and the second one is informal communication. Now let's first discuss the formal communication. Formal communications are all the communication which takes place in the organization. In other words, formal communication refers to the interchange of information officially. For example, discussing about the plans and policies of organization, discussing about the problems which the organization is facing, and so on. The flow of communication is controlled and a deliberate effort. This makes it possible for the information to reach to the desired place without any hindrance, at a little cost, and in a proper way. Formal communications take place in oral as well as in written form, but generally it is in written form because there is no proof of oral communication. Now let's take up one example. The general manager communicates a decision to the production manager, who may then issue orders or instructions to the foreman. It may also be like a worker applying to his supervisor for a loan from the GPF account. He or she forwards it to the manager accounts, who finally send it to the general manager finance for approval. Now, formal communications are of three types. Upward communication. Upward communication means when communication flows from subordinate to superior is known as upper communication. For example, complaints of subordinate, suggestions or advices of subordinates. The second type is downward communication. Downward communication means when communications flows from superior to subordinate. For example, communicating plans and policies to the subordinates or notice for meeting to the subordinates. Number third type, horizontal communication. Horizontal communication means that which take place between two persons of the same level in the organization. Take an example. Production manager communicates with marketing manager regarding the product design, price, and the quality. Now let us discuss the features of formal communication. The first feature is written and oral. So formal communication can be both written or oral, as we discussed earlier. Daily works are handled through oral communication, and while the policy matters required written communication. Second feature is formal relations. This communication is adopted among those employees where formal relations have been established by the organization. The sender and the receiver have some sort of organizational relation. Next feature is prescribed path. The communication has to pass through a definite channel while moving from one person to another. For example, to convey the feeling of worker to the manager, that means if a worker wants to convey something to the manager, he has to take the help of foremen for this purpose. Next is organizational messages. This channel is concerned with the authorized organizational messages only, and the personal messages are out of this jurisdiction. Next is deliberate efforts. This channel of communication is not established automatically, but efforts has to be made for its creation. It is decided keeping in view the objectives of organization. Now let's discuss the informal communication. Informal communication refers to the interchange of information unofficially. This communication is based on informal relations like friendship, member of same club, the same place of birth, and so on, and therefore is free from all the organizational formalities. The exchange of informal messages usually take place on the occasion of community meals, social occasions, parties, etc. On such occasions, the superiors gather such information from their subordinates as may be difficult to get through formal communication. Such communication includes comments, suggestions, etc. Under this communication take place through gestures, moving of heads, smiling, and by remaining quiet. For example, a superior wants to complain against his subordinate to his higher officer, and at the same time he is afraid of giving it in writing. This can be conveyed by the higher officers through informal communication, says during the course of conversation. Informal communication is also called grapevine communication because there is no definite channel of communication. Under such information passes through many individuals and cover a long distance making its origin. This is exactly like a grapevine where it is difficult to find the beginning and the end. Now let's take up one example of informal communication. Any sharing of information between a production supervisor and an accountant as they happens to be friends. Mostly informal channels are used due to friendly interaction of members of an organization. In fact, it may be purely personal or related to organizational matters. Now let us discuss the features of informal communication. The first one is unplanned structure. This structure is not planned. It arises spontaneously out of formal interaction amongst people. When people formally interacts with each other, they tend to discuss their interests, attitudes, hobbies, beliefs, etc. And in the course of doing so, forms group whose goals are different from formal organizational goals. Their informal relations gradually develop informal organization that coexist with the formal organization. Next feature is social need. The basic purpose of informal organization is fulfillment of social and personal needs of people. People share common thoughts, feelings, and interests different from formal organizational goals. Their social needs of friendship and supports are strengthened by informal organizations. Next is informal communication. The system of communication is informal. It does not follow the chain of command. It operates along with formal channels of communication and works faster than the formal channels. It transmits the messages much faster, though rumors may also spread along with the formal messages. Communication flows in every direction, vertical, horizontal, diagonal, and connects people throughout the organization. Then comes the no formal structure. A formal organization has a definite structure. It is depicted by lines and boxes on the organizational charts. Informal organization does not have any formal structure. It cannot be precisely shown on the organizational chart. Relationship among people changes according to the changes in their interaction and likings for each other. Workers of production department may consult sales manager to solve their personal problems rather than production manager, and vice versa. There are no superiors and subordinate in informal organization. People communicate with each other in all forms: vertical, horizontal, and diagonal. Next is no rules and regulations. It has no fixed rules and regulations that govern functions of organization. Rules are framed and changed by people according to their convenience. So these were the features of informal communication. Hope students you are clear with today's topic. Thank you.